The entire kingdom celebrated when the royal treasury was finally found, until one quiet archivist realized every coin inside had been replaced with perfect fakes, and somehow, everyone except her had forgotten the real treasure ever existed. They celebrated the return of the kingdom's greatest treasure. I was the only one who remembered it wasn't ours. The bells of Luminera rang before sunrise. Every tower in the floating capital shimmered in warm peach and lavender light as thousands of pastel-colored cats flooded the cobblestone streets. Flower petals drifted through the air from hovering gardens suspended beneath enormous crystal balloons. Musicians lined the bridges connecting the floating districts, their melodies echoing over sparkling canals that reflected the pink morning sky. Everyone was smiling. Everyone except me. I stood on the highest balcony of the Royal Archive, clutching a stack of ledgers against my chest while watching servants wheel an enormous glass carriage toward the palace. Inside rested the legendary Heart Treasury, the treasure that had supposedly been missing for 3 centuries. The treasure that had supposedly just been recovered. The treasure that wasn't real. Impossible, I whispered. A cheerful voice interrupted my thoughts. There you are. I turned to find my apprentice racing toward me. Pippa was a tiny cream-colored ragdoll cat whose oversized spectacles constantly slid down her nose whenever she became excited, which was almost always. Her satchel bounced wildly as she skidded to a stop. Sorrel, why are you standing all the way up here? They're about to unveil the Heart Treasury. I know. Aren't you excited? No. She blinked. No. I looked back toward the palace square. I've cataloged every historical record concerning the Heart Treasury. So that isn't it. Pippa laughed. Then she noticed I wasn't smiling. You're serious? I wish I wasn't. Half an hour later, the royal plaza overflowed with citizens. Families perched atop pastel rooftops. Children balanced on colorful fountains, shaped like giant lilies. Every window overlooked the ceremony. At the center stood Queen Aurelia, beneath a magnificent crystal canopy. Behind her rested the treasure. It was breathtaking. Hundreds of gemstones glowed softly beneath transparent glass. Golden coins sparkled like captured sunlight. Ancient crowns, jeweled scrolls, ceremonial swords. Every piece looked flawless. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Our ancestors' legacy has returned. Cheers rolled across the city. The queen smiled warmly. 4 generations, we believe these treasures lost forever. More cheering. They belong to every citizen of Luminera once again. I closed my eyes. Something felt wrong. Not emotionally. Physically. Like listening to a song with one missing note. A tiny detail that made the entire melody collapse. I opened my ledger. Page 417. Heart Treasury. Inventory copied from the Royal Census 312 years ago. My eyes scanned downward. Emerald crown. Present. Silver compass. Present. Moon chalice. Present. Ivory scepter. Present. Every item matched. Exactly. Too perfectly. No scratches. No restoration marks. No signs of age. It looked less like recovered history, and more like someone had manufactured history yesterday. That evening, I received an unexpected summons. The queen wanted me personally. Her council chamber overlooked the western waterfalls, where rivers spilled endlessly into clouds below. Pastel blue curtains fluttered gently in the evening breeze. Queen Aurelia smiled kindly as I entered. Sorrel. I bowed. You requested me, Your Majesty. I did. She motioned toward the empty chair beside her. Sit. I obeyed. She studied me for several quiet moments. I noticed something today. What did you notice? You didn't clap. I remained silent. She folded her paws together. You believe the treasure is fake. My ears twitched. Yes. Instead of becoming offended, she sighed. I hoped you wouldn't notice. My heart skipped. What? She stood and walked toward the enormous stained glass window. I've trusted your judgment since you became Royal Archivist. You already knew. I knew something was wrong. Then why announce it? Because, she whispered, I don't remember what the real treasury looked like. The room became perfectly still. What? She turned slowly. My memory tells me we've recovered everything. But every document says something different. She pressed a paw against her temple. Every time I try to remember the original collection, she winced. There's only fog. Cold spread through my chest. You've forgotten. So has every member of my court. No. And somehow, her golden eyes met mine. You haven't. That night I couldn't sleep. The Royal Archive never truly rested. Moonlight filtered through stained glass ceilings, painting the endless bookshelves in soft blues and violets. I wandered alone between towering shelves. Thousands, millions, of books. Every document the kingdom had ever preserved. If answers existed, they would be here. I climbed a spiral staircase leading toward the restricted wing. Few cats ever visited this section. Dust floated lazily through shafts of silver moonlight. The silence felt different, almost expectant. I stopped before Vault 27, the oldest archive in existence. Its iron lock clicked open. Inside rested only one shelf. Empty. Completely empty. Except one small notebook. No title. No author. Just worn blue leather. I opened the first page. The handwriting belonged to me. My breath caught. Impossible. I'd never seen this notebook before. The first sentence read, "If you're reading this, they've already begun forgetting." I flipped another page. The replacement always happens after the treasury is found. Another page. "Do not trust anyone who says the coins sing." My pulse quickened. Another page. "If I disappear again." Again. "Find the warden beneath the clock garden." Footsteps echoed somewhere outside the vault. Slow. Heavy. Measured. Someone else was in the archive. I quietly closed the notebook. The footsteps stopped. Directly outside the door. Then. A voice. "Come. Deep. You shouldn't be in there." I froze. The voice continued. "Especially if you've started remembering." The handle slowly began to turn. The handle turned. Very slowly. I took one silent step backward, instinctively slipping the mysterious notebook beneath my cloak, just as the heavy vault door creaked open. Standing outside was the tallest cat I had ever seen. He wasn't dressed like a noble, nor a soldier. His long slate blue coat was simple, tailored, and immaculate. A silver pocket watch hung from one side of his belt, gently ticking despite there being no wind. His lynx ears twitched once. Bright silver eyes settled on mine. Not suspicious. Relieved. "Good." I frowned. "Good. You can still see me." The words landed strangely. "What?" He folded his paws behind his back. "I've been standing outside this archive for nearly 20 minutes. I know." "No." He gave me a sad smile. "You noticed me. The guards didn't." My heartbeat stumbled. "What are you talking about?" He glanced over his shoulder. 2 royal guards stood only a few feet away. Neither looked toward us. One yawned. The other continued chatting casually, as though the enormous lynx standing in the middle of the hallway simply didn't exist. The stranger sighed. "It gets worse every week." I slowly stepped into the corridor. One guard walked directly between us, straight through the space where the lynx stood, without acknowledging him, without apologizing, without even blinking. When the guard continued walking, the lynx remained exactly where he had been, as though nothing had happened. I stared. "They can't see you." "No." "How?" "I don't know anymore." The answer chilled me more than if he'd claimed magic. "I'm Sorrel." "I know. You know my name." "I've known your name for a very long time." He offered a polite bow. "My name is Rowan. You work for the palace?" "I used to." "What do you do now?" He looked toward the enormous stained glass ceiling. "I remember." Neither of us spoke for several moments. Finally I reached beneath my cloak and pulled out the blue notebook. His expression changed instantly. "You found it. You know what this is." "I know who wrote it." "I did." "Yes. But I don't remember writing it." "You weren't supposed to." "What does that mean?" He looked genuinely conflicted. As much as I'd like to answer, "Someone is listening." A bell echoed through the archive. Midnight. Every lantern extinguished simultaneously. Darkness swallowed the shelves. Only moonlight remained. Rowan's ears lifted. "They're early." "Who's early?" He grabbed my wrist. "Run." The floor exploded. Not shattered. Vanished. Bookshelves folded into impossible angles. Entire corridors bent like soft paper. The archive twisted around us. "What is happening?" "Don't look back." Naturally. I looked back. The hallway wasn't there anymore. Instead, thousands of books floated upside down in complete silence. Pages turned by themselves. Words peeled off the paper like glowing insects. Letters drifted through the air, then gathered together. Building. Someone. The shape stood nearly 10 feet tall, made entirely of written words. Its eyes were empty circles. Its voice sounded like hundreds of librarians whispering at once. Unauthorized memory detected. My blood froze. Rowan didn't slow. "Keep moving." The creature took one step. Every bookcase in the corridor moved with it. Shelves stretched endlessly. The exit disappeared. The archive had become a maze. We burst through a wooden door. Instantly, everything stopped. We weren't inside the archive anymore. I blinked. What? Around us stretched a peaceful botanical garden. Soft pink trees, floating koi swimming through the air, crystal butterflies drifting between blossoms, birds singing quietly. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. This isn't possible. It isn't. Rowan finally released my wrist. The garden no longer exists. I stared. What? It was demolished 74 years ago. I looked around again. Everything felt real. The breeze, the flowers, the scent of jasmine. Then where are we? He looked toward an enormous clock tower standing beyond the trees. We're inside someone's memory. A tiny laugh echoed nearby. Children. Dozens of kittens chased glowing butterflies across the grass. Families picnicked beneath flowering trees. Musicians played beside marble fountains. No one acknowledged us. They can't see us. They're echoes. Echoes. They already happened. I slowly turned. This place is remembering itself. Rowan nodded. We reached the enormous clock tower. It dwarfed everything else. Its face shimmered with pale gold gears. Yet, its hands weren't moving. They were spinning backward. Slowly, steadily. Tick, tick, tick. Backward. I felt suddenly nauseous. What happened here? Rowan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed toward a marble bench beneath the clock. Someone sat there. A little black kitten. Long fluffy fur. Bright green eyes. Tiny round spectacles. She couldn't have been older than 8. She held a notebook in her lap. Blue leather. Exactly like mine. My breathing stopped. That's you. The kitten happily scribbled notes. Every few moments she'd glance toward the clock tower, smile, and continue writing. What is she documenting? My first day here? No. Rowan's voice became very quiet. Your first day remembering. The peaceful air suddenly changed. The birds stopped singing. Butterflies froze. Even the wind disappeared. Every echo in the garden looked toward the sky simultaneously. A crack, thin as glass, spread across the clouds. Then another, and another. The blue sky fractured. Beyond the cracks, there wasn't another sky. There was only darkness. Something enormous moved behind it, watching. Patiently, hungrily. The little kitten looked up. She smiled. Then, she slowly turned her head, not toward the sky, toward us. Straight toward us. Impossible. Echoes weren't supposed to see us. She stood, closed her notebook, walked directly across the garden, stopped inches from me. Her green eyes filled with tears. You came back. I couldn't breathe. She reached into her pocket, placed a tiny silver key into my paw. I hid it before they erased you. What erased me? She shook her head. I don't have much time. The cracks across the sky widened. The darkness behind them pulsed. They're waking up. Who? The little kitten stepped closer. Her voice became barely a whisper. The librarians. The ground trembled. Every smiling family vanished. Every flower withered instantly. The clock tower rang once. A deep, ancient, echoing sound. Boom. The little kitten looked terrified. You have to leave. I don't understand. You will. She gently closed my fingers around the silver key. When you find the door, don't let them rewrite your name. The garden shattered like glass. Everything dissolved into brilliant white light. The last thing I saw before everything disappeared was Rowan drawing a sword I hadn't even noticed he carried. Not toward the darkness, but toward someone standing behind me. Someone who whispered gently into my ear. You were never supposed to remember. A paw slammed into my shoulder. I staggered backward. Steel flashed through the air. Clang! Rowan's sword collided with another blade, so violently that sparks scattered like tiny stars across the white void. I spun around. Standing only inches behind me was a tall, elegant Siamese cat dressed in pristine ivory robes embroidered with silver thread. She smiled pleasantly, as though attempting to kill me had merely been a misunderstanding. What remarkable reflexes, she said softly. Her voice was warm, too warm. The sort of voice that made strangers instinctively trust her. Rowan didn't lower his sword. You found us faster than expected. The Siamese tilted her head. You've been very difficult to forget. The white light dissolved. Stone rushed back beneath my feet. Bookshelves. Dust. Moonlight. We were back inside Vault 27. Only seconds had passed. The mysterious cat stood between the shelves, perfectly composed. She slowly folded her paws inside her sleeves. Before we continue, can I ask you something? Yeah, you. You've made it this far, which tells me you're exactly the kind of person these stories are made for. So do me a tiny favor. Tap subscribe and follow. Not because some mysterious algorithm demands sacrifices every Tuesday. Although, I'm not saying it doesn't. It simply tells YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, hey, make more stories like this. And honestly, I'd love to keep making adventures for you. Now, Let's find out why an entire kingdom forgot its own history. My name is Celestine. Neither of us answered. She smiled anyway. I oversee historical preservation. You tried to stab me, I replied. A technicality. Rowan scoffed. You aimed for her heart. I aimed for the notebook. She looked directly at me. You should give it to me. No. It belongs to the archive. It belongs to me. Her smile became just a little thinner. It belonged to you. She walked slowly around the room. Her footsteps made no sound. You've noticed the treasury. Yes. You've noticed the memories. Yes. You've noticed Rowan. Yes. She sighed. How unfortunate. Pippa suddenly appeared in the hallway outside. There you are, Sorrel. I looked toward her. Pippa, don't come in. She frowned. Why are you shouting? She looked directly at Celestine. Then, right through her. As though she wasn't there. Pippa smiled awkwardly. Are you talking to yourself again? My stomach dropped. She couldn't see her either. Celestine gave me an apologetic smile. You see. She gestured toward Pippa. The world functions much more peacefully when unnecessary people become unnoticeable. Pippa wandered away humming to herself. The moment she disappeared, Celestine's smile vanished completely. You've reached an unfortunate crossroads, Sorrel. What crossroads? You remember. So eventually, she leaned closer. Everyone else won't. I frowned. What does that mean? Instead of answering, she reached toward the nearest bookshelf, pulled out a random history book, opened it. Read page 92. I did. My blood ran cold. The page was blank. Every word. Gone. I flipped backward. Blank. Forward. Blank. Entire chapters had vanished. This book described the first council. It used to. I grabbed another. Blank. Another. Blank. Another. Blank. History itself was disappearing. No. I rushed toward another shelf. Hundreds of books. Thousands of pages. Everyone missing something. Names. Dates. Battles. Entire families. Whole kingdoms. Pieces cut cleanly out of existence. Not torn. Not burned. Simply absent. As though they'd never existed. My breathing became uneven. This can't happen. It already has. Celestine's tone remained almost sympathetic. Memories are heavy. They're meant to fade. History is meant to simplify itself. Rowan's grip tightened around his sword. That's not history. No. She turned gracefully toward him. Then tell me, Warden. Her smile sharpened. How many citizens still remember your face? Silence. How many remember your title? More silence. How many remember? She looked him directly in the eyes. Your sister. For the first time, Rowan looked afraid. Real fear. His ears lowered. His breathing stopped. Leave her out of this. I merely asked a question. He couldn't answer. Because he didn't know. Celestine looked back at me. He's forgetting too. I stared at Rowan. No. His voice barely emerged. Not her. He closed his eyes tightly. I remember she laughed. Silence. I remember. Another pause. I remember. Nothing came. His shoulders trembled. I can't remember her name. I had never seen grief arrive so quietly. Not with tears. Not with screams. Just a single sentence. I can't remember her name. Celestine almost looked disappointed. It has begun. She turned toward me. It always starts with the names. She reached into her sleeve, produced a single gold coin. It gleamed beautifully beneath the moonlight, exactly like those inside the Heart Treasury. She flipped it toward me. I caught it. The moment it touched my paw, I heard music. Beautiful. Gentle. Almost hypnotic. Like distant voices singing beneath water. The melody wrapped around my thoughts. Warm. Comforting. Safe. For just one wonderful second, everything felt perfect. Then, I remembered the notebook. Do not trust anyone who says the coins sing. I threw it across the room. The instant it left my paw, the music stopped. Celestine smiled knowingly. So, you've read ahead. She didn't attack. She simply bowed. I'll allow you 1 week. What? 1 week to change your mind. And if I don't? She looked toward the palace. They'll forget you. She smiled kindly. You won't even notice. She walked toward the exit. Halfway through the doorway, she dissolved into thousands of glowing letters. The letters floated upward, disappeared into the ceiling. Gone. Silence returned. I looked at Rowan. What was she? He stared after the fading letters. One of the librarians. The kitten warned me about them. They're real. What do they want? He answered without looking at me. They don't steal memories. He paused. They edit them. A cold breeze drifted through the broken vault. I looked down. The silver key still rested in my paw. Tiny. Old. Its surface was engraved with an hourglass. Rowan noticed. His expression changed instantly. Where did you get that? The little kitten. His eyes widened. Impossible. You know her. I know where she lives. You said she was a memory. I thought she was. He looked at the key again, then slowly shook his head. No. She's still alive. Before I could ask another question, Every clock inside the Royal Archive struck one. Not together. One after another. Like dominoes. Bong. 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 Hundreds of clocks. Then, the palace bells answered. Then the city. Soon, every clock in Luminera rang the same impossible hour. One. Again. And again. And again. They never stopped. Outside, cats poured into the streets in confusion. Windows opened. Lanterns lit. Voices filled the night. Then, absolute silence. Not because everyone stopped talking. Because everyone stopped moving. Every citizen froze exactly where they stood. Mid-step. Mid-sentence. Mid-breath. The entire kingdom had become a statue. Only Rowan and I remained able to move. Far above the floating city, the giant clock tower from the memory garden appeared among the clouds. It hadn't been there before. Its enormous hands began turning backward. The sky itself started to unravel. And from somewhere beneath the city, a deep mechanical voice echoed through the world. Revision commencing. Revision commencing. The voice didn't shake the city. It shook reality. A low hum rolled beneath my paws as every floating island above Luminera shifted by fractions of an inch. The stars blinked. One. After another. As if invisible paws were plucking them from the sky. Then the first citizen disappeared. A flower merchant. She didn't scream. She simply unraveled. Tiny glowing letters peeled away from her body, drifting upward like glowing petals until nothing remained. The basket of flowers hit the ground. The flowers remained. The merchant didn't. What just happened? Rowan grabbed my arm. We're too late. For what? The revision has started. I looked around desperately. The streets were frozen. The clock still rang. The merchant's stall now looked as though no one had ever owned it. Even the sign above it had changed. Bloom and Sons. A moment ago, it had read, Mara's Garden. I knew it had. Didn't I? Another shop vanished. This time, the entire building folded inward like paper. It became smaller, simpler, less detailed, as though someone had erased every unnecessary line from a painting. Cats walking past never reacted. To them, nothing had changed. Only Rowan and I remembered. We have to get to the clock garden. It was demolished. It still exists. Where? He looked upward. Between minutes. I stared. What? He pulled the silver key from my paw, held it toward the moon. The tiny hourglass engraved into the metal began glowing pale blue. The air rippled. A narrow staircase appeared, made entirely of transparent glass. It climbed, straight into the sky. I've climbed the staircase before. You have. He nodded slowly. I just don't remember why. We began climbing. Each step echoed softly beneath us. Below, the city grew smaller. Pastel rooftops blended together into a watercolor dream. Clouds drifted lazily around us. Everything should have felt peaceful. Instead, something watched. I felt it. The sensation crawled between my shoulder blades. Watching. Waiting. Patient. Halfway up, I looked down. The palace seemed different. Smaller. No. Incomplete. One entire wing had vanished. No rubble. No damage. Simply. Never there. The Queen's observatory. I'd worked there dozens of times. Hadn't I? I blinked. What observatory? I stopped walking. Rowan immediately noticed. What is it? I frowned. I can't remember. His face fell. They've started on you. Without warning. The staircase trembled violently. Something enormous struck it from below. Glass cracked. A deafening boom echoed through the clouds. Another impact. The staircase shattered beneath our feet. We fell. Clouds rushed past. The city spun below. I reached instinctively toward Rowan. But something caught us. Not paws. Vines. Gigantic flowering vines erupted from nowhere, wrapping gently around our waists before lowering us onto a floating island hidden inside the clouds. I looked up. An elderly tortoiseshell cat stood beneath a blooming cherry tree. She wore gardening gloves and looked deeply annoyed. You two certainly know how to make an entrance. She continued trimming a rose bush, without even looking at us. Rowan blinked. You can see me. She snorted. I planted him. I stared. You what? She sighed dramatically. Not literally. Finally she looked up. Kind amber eyes sparkled with amusement. I'm Iris. She pointed her pruning shears toward Rowan. I trained this stubborn kitten before he grew into an impossible adult. Rowan looked genuinely shocked. Master. She rolled her eyes. Oh, wonderful. So you still remember me. I looked between them. You know each other? She laughed. I changed his diapers. Rowan immediately looked horrified. Master. What? You didn't have to tell her that. I absolutely did. For the first time since this nightmare began. I laughed. Just once. Short. Unexpected. Iris smiled warmly. There. That's better. She pointed toward me. The librarians hate laughter. They hate laughter? They can't edit genuine joy. Before I could ask why, she became serious. Come. She led us toward a tiny greenhouse built entirely from stained glass. Inside, hundreds of clocks hung from the ceiling. Every shape imaginable. Pocket watches, grandfather clocks, tiny wristwatches, massive pendulums. None show the same time. What is this place? My garden. There are clocks growing. They're memories. She gently watered a tiny silver pocket watch growing from a flower pot. When a memory survives a revision, she smiled proudly. It blooms. I stared in amazement. Every clock ticked differently. Some quickly, some slowly, some backward, some not at all. One tiny clock had completely stopped. Its petals were beginning to wilt. Iris gently touched it. Her expression softened. My husband's favorite song. I frowned. You remember? I remember loving it. She closed her eyes. I don't remember the melody anymore. Silence settled over the greenhouse. Even Rowan looked away. Iris straightened. The librarians don't destroy worlds. They simplify them. They remove details. Names. Songs. Faces. Dreams. They believe perfect order creates perfect peace. She picked up a faded photograph. 3 smiling cats stood together. Only one face remained. The other 2 had become blank white silhouettes. They call it editing. I call it loneliness. She walked toward the far wall. There, hidden beneath climbing ivy, stood an enormous wooden door. Ancient, beautifully carved. No handle, only a tiny keyhole shaped like an hourglass. The silver key in my pocket suddenly became warm. I slowly removed it. This is the door. Iris nodded. Beyond it, she hesitated, is the first archive. Rowan's breathing caught. I thought it was destroyed. So did they. I stepped closer. Every instinct told me to stop. The wood seemed alive. Tiny glowing letters drifted across its surface before disappearing into the grain. I placed the silver key into the lock. It fit perfectly. Before I could turn it, someone applauded. Slowly, politely. We spun around, standing at the greenhouse entrance. Celestine smiled. She wasn't alone. Behind her stood 12 identical figures. Each wore different robes, different colors, different ages, but they all shared the same calm smile. The librarians. Every one of them looked at me, as one. Then they spoke. Not separately. Together. One voice. We asked politely. The greenhouse doors closed by themselves. Every clock stopped ticking. The flowers wilted instantly. Celestine took one graceful step forward. You have reached the final draft, Sorrel. She extended one paw. Please return the key. I tightened my grip. No. For the first time, her smile disappeared. The temperature dropped. Ink-black letters began spilling from beneath her sleeves, twisting through the air like living ribbons. Behind me, the ancient door shuddered. The key turned by itself, and from the tiny opening between the doors, a small voice whispered my name. Not Sorrel. Not the name I had known my entire life. A different name. One that somehow made my heart ache. A name I had forgotten. The whispered name echoed through the crack in the ancient door. Not Sorrel. Another name. Older. Warmer. It wrapped itself around my heart like a forgotten lullaby. For one impossible moment, I knew it. Then it vanished again. I staggered back, clutching my head. What was that? The librarian spoke in perfect unison. Your original name. Silence filled the greenhouse. Even Iris stopped breathing. Rowan stepped protectively beside me. Don't listen to them. Celestine tilted her head. I find it fascinating. She looked at me almost sympathetically. She has spent her entire life searching the archives, never realizing she was a missing page. My stomach tightened. What are you talking about? Celestine slowly circled us. You believe you were born in Luminera. You weren't. You believe you became Royal Archivist because of your talent. You didn't. You believe your memories are incomplete because we stole them. She smiled. No. They were surrendered. I would never surrender my memories. No. She looked directly into my eyes. Then why does the notebook exist? The words hit like lightning. I remembered. Just for a heartbeat. Ink-stained paws. Sleepless nights. Writing. Page after page after page. My own handwriting. My own promise. If you're reading this. My knees weakened. The greenhouse disappeared. Not physically. Mentally. Memories flooded back so violently they stole my breath. Not all of them. Pieces. Fragments. A younger version of me. Running through endless shelves. Laughing. Arguing with Rowan. Drinking tea with Iris. Standing before this very door. And beyond it, a library so enormous that the stars themselves hung between its shelves. Then, another memory. The first revision. Cats screaming as names disappeared from history. Children forgetting their parents. Parents forgetting their children. Books becoming blank overnight. I remembered crying. I remembered begging. I remembered finding a solution. Then, the final memory. Me, standing before the ancient door. Placing both paws against it. Saying quietly, take mine first. I opened my eyes. Tears rolled silently down my face. It was me. Rowan stared. You remember? I nodded slowly. I asked them to erase me. No. I did. One more tiny pause before we discover the truth. If you've fallen in love with Sorrel, Rowan, and this world. Please subscribe. Every subscription tells me these stories deserve another chapter. I'd really love to build many more kingdoms for you. Okay, let's open the final door. I finally understood. The notebook, the missing name, the forgotten childhood, the strange feeling that something had always been missing. I had traded my own identity to protect everyone else's. Celestine watched calmly. You delayed us. You saved millions. But sacrifices expire. She extended her paw. The world requires another revision. No. The voice didn't come from me. It came from Rowan. He stepped forward, sword lowered, not raised. I've spent decades fighting you. I've watched friends disappear. I've forgotten faces I promised I'd never lose. His voice trembled. I even forgot my sister's name. He smiled sadly. But he looked at me. I remembered why I kept fighting. Iris walked beside him. Old. Small. Yet somehow larger than everyone else in the room. When gardeners pruned too much, she said softly, the flowers stopped blooming. The librarians remained silent. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. I looked toward the ancient door. The silver key still rested in the lock. Waiting. The voice whispered again. Not words. Music. A melody. Gentle. Hopeful. The melody Iris couldn't remember. The melody Rowan's sister used to sing. The melody every citizen had forgotten. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. I turned the key. The door opened. Light spilled into the greenhouse. Not blinding. Soft. Warm. Pastel. Like sunrise reflected across calm water. Inside stretched the first archive. It wasn't made of shelves. It was made of memories. Thousands of glowing ribbons floated gently through the air. Each ribbon carried a laugh. A birthday. A first friendship. A goodbye. A dream. A promise. Every forgotten moment in history still existed here, waiting to be remembered. I stepped inside. The ribbons surrounded me. One brushed my shoulder. Suddenly, I remembered my mother's voice. Another touched my paw. I remember my first day in the archive. Another, Pippa laughing because she tripped over an enormous dictionary. Thousands more drifted around me. The kingdom hadn't lost its memories. They'd been stored, protected, hidden. Behind me, the librarians entered. Their expressions remained calm, but their perfect confidence had disappeared. Celestine spoke first. You cannot restore everything. Why? The weight would destroy them. I looked around. Millions of memories. Millions of lives. She wasn't entirely wrong. No mind could survive receiving centuries of forgotten history at once. Then, I smiled. I don't have to. I picked up one glowing ribbon. A child laughing. Another. A grandmother humming while baking. Another. Two friends meeting beneath cherry blossoms. I gently released them into the air. The ribbons drifted upward. Passed through the ceiling. Into the sky. Far below. The bells stopped ringing. A flower merchant blinked. That's strange. She looked down at her shop. Mara's garden. She smiled. I wondered why I'd painted over the sign. Elsewhere. A musician paused. Then laughed. I remember the second verse. A grandfather suddenly embraced his grandson. I forgot. He whispered. Your mother's favorite joke. Both burst into laughter. Across Luminera, no one received everything. Just one memory. One precious piece. Enough to make the world a little fuller. A little kinder. A little more alive. Celestine watched in silence. Finally, she smiled. A genuine smile. Very different from before. I see. She looked around the first archive. We tried to preserve perfection. I nodded. But perfection isn't living. One by one, the librarians lowered their heads. The black letters surrounding them dissolved into soft golden light. Not because they'd been defeated. Because they understood. Outside, the floating city transformed. Blank murals filled themselves with forgotten paintings. Statues regained missing names. Libraries slowly restored their vanished chapters. Music echoed from every district. Not because history had returned completely. Because people began sharing the memories they'd recovered. One story became another. Another became 10. Then 100. History wasn't rewritten. It was retold. Together. Several days later, the Royal Plaza filled once again. Not for a celebration. For storytelling. Children sat in circles, listening to elders. Artists painted forgotten landscapes. Musicians played songs reconstructed one verse at a time. Every citizen contributed one memory. No one owned history anymore. Everyone protected it. Pippa hurried toward me carrying a mountain of books. I've got wonderful news. What happened? The Queen says we're opening an entirely new wing of the archive. She grinned. For stories that haven't been forgotten. But might be someday. I smiled. I think that's the most important collection we'll ever build. Nearby, Rowan stood beneath a flowering cherry tree, watching the city. I walked beside him. They remember you now. He laughed softly. They remember there's a warden. They still don't know my name. Does that bother you? He thought for a moment, then shook his head. Not anymore. He looked toward the bustling streets. I'll earn it again. The evening breeze carried laughter across the floating bridges. Pastel lanterns illuminated the canals below. For the first time in centuries, the clocks throughout Luminera all ticked together. Forward, steady, unafraid. I looked up at the sky. The cracks were gone. Only stars remained, each one shining with a story someone had chosen not to forget. And tucked safely inside my cloak, the blue notebook rested against my heart. Its final page, once blank, now held a single new sentence in fresh ink. History survives whenever someone chooses to remember another person's story.